us on mute, then only the speakers will be heard. Otherwise, we will be capturing everybody's ambient sound.
No, we're going to unmute everyone. We're going to
mute everyone.
Okay.
Hi, Shaila. I see you there. Dia, you doing good?
Aryan, can you start, please?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
Good evening. I am Aryan Shrinath.
The face is muted. I think so.
There's some disturbance in the background.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I am Aryan Shrinath, and I wanted to share a poem with all of you today.
Okay.
I've written a poem about the environment, and I hope all of you are okay with it. Well, now there's no option, but okay. Brushed her teeth with no plastic but twigs of neem. Fabulous, ancient Indian practice, it would seem. Steel buckets and mugs were all it took to clean, to wash, and to cook. Off went grandma to pick up groceries and fruits. With loads of cloth bags, she set off in her usual route. Fruits and flowers, wrapped in natural leaf, a practice that was once effective, and so was her belief. No plastic tubes for soaps, creams, and shampoo. Turmeric, neem, basil, yogurt you would dip into. Nuts, seeds, leaves, and roots were popularly used. A practice that was effective and now totally abused. Plates made of dry leaves of fresh banana.
Aryan is talking.
No spoons, forks, knives, but just what nature conceives. The 5 fingers did the trick for the final lip-smacking lick. A practice that was effective by any yardstick. We were in awe with the trend-setting West. We ignored the great culture to ape the rest. Indulged in environmentally harmful produce. Noose around the earth with the misuse and abuse. Plastic clutter is creating havoc in our daily living. The West is leading the way with solutions befitting. Plates made of leaves, steel buckets, and sunshine, they say. We are amazed at their ideas, or is it ours, and excitedly obey. Life is a never-ending cycle, is what they always say. What goes out will come back one day. These scientific practices were never explained or understood. They shall haunt us in the future, as we were not very shrewd. The good practices of yore were never clearly documented. The reasons, though scientific, were never explained or articulated. This is how it has always been done, was the response we heard. We were definitely looking for more meat as a logical herd. We love to practice what is preached to us by the Western souls, who are amazed at our culture that no young Indian knows. Yoga, turmeric latte, copper cups, and leaf plates. We lap it up like unheard magic that will save us every day. Time to wake up to reading and appreciating our scripture. The more we hear about it, we get to see the bigger picture. Our ancestors were smart and very scientific in their approach. We certainly don't need to look very far to find a true life coach. Thank you.
Thank you, Aryan. Good morning.
Wonderful, Aryan. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning, good evening, and that was the voice of the next generation, making it very clear that we do not own the earth, but we just preserve it for the next generation. I'm Malu Natarajan, the chairperson of FLO Mumbai. FLO is the women's wing of Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It is one of the oldest and the largest women's business association in Southeast Asia. We have about 17 chapters across the country with a membership of over 8,000. For this year, FLO Mumbai has aligned its goals with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Environment is one key area that we've always been focusing on over the years. The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. Let's look at the current situation. There's nothing good about the coronavirus. It's killing many people and shutting millions more inside with fear as the main companion. However, if you're fated to go through this passage, we may as well learn something from it. And it does strike me that there are a few insights that are applicable to the climate crisis that shadows all of our lives. It is amazing to see the plants that were always filled with dust, now filled with beautiful flowers. The pollution-free skies, peacocks and deer chilling in the streets of the cities, the different species of birds that you get to listen to all within a matter of few months. What is the silent message of Mother Earth? I can certainly take care of myself. I gave you the opportunity to live along with me and to coexist with the creatures around. You have crossed your limits, and that had to be stopped. The humans for decades have only talked about climate change, deforestation, and global warming in fancy offsites, but never followed through. So I've decided to heal myself and locked all the humans in their homes. In a short span of time, you can see and feel my play. The skies are blue, the rivers are clear, and you even have fresh air to breathe. We're all interconnected with nature, whether we like it or not. We need to take care of nature to take care of ourselves. With a population of about 8 billion people on this planet, we need nature as the strongest ally to move forward. My EC and I are delighted to welcome you to a panel discussion around sustainability through nature-based solutions in collaboration with Sanctuary Nature Foundation. We have a fabulous panel, my dream team, I would say, to talk to us about our interaction with nature and how we can save the planet with nature-based solution. Before we do that, we have the honor of having Ms. Janavi Pookan, the 37th National President of FLO with us. Way back in March, the two of us were talking about collaborating with Bittu, and we finally made it. Janavi's focus is on sustainable livelihood for economic empowerment of women. She's an entrepreneur, a co-founder of 2 National Tourism Award-winning companies. Her companies empower young people's livelihoods, especially women and their communities. Over to you, Janavi.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of the 17 chapters, Pan-India, which I represent as the 37th National President of FLO. I'm especially happy to be here in this session by the Mumbai chapter, as this topic is so in sync with my vision, as Malu put it, for my year 2020-21, which is based on sustainable livelihood, which I believe very passionately in, coming from where I do in the Northeast, that sustainable livelihood would be a model for women's economic upliftment. Talking about nature-based solution, which is the topic of today's session, IUCN defines it as actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural or modified ecosystems that address societal challenges effectively and adaptively, simultaneously providing human well-being and biodiversity benefits. Urbanization presents one of the most urgent challenges of the 21st century. Now, the global population will reach about 10 billion by 2050, and according to the revised projections of the United Nations, the proportion that will live in urban areas is expected to increase from 54 to 70%. These are figures, of course, before COVID. We'll see how COVID changes the scenario for us now. But meantime, for what nature has given back to us, and these are the repercussions we face of the unsustainable, the non-resilient urbanization pattern, which have caused the degradation of the ecosystems. And we can see that for ourselves today. and the need for that urban growth which happened, and that migration from the villages to the towns and to the cities beyond is due to the growing population, and also has led to the environmentally sustainable policies we require now to address this problem for the need for a healthy environment. So we need a paradigm shift towards restorative sustainability. I did believe that stepping into the new decade of the 2020s, we should look more towards sustainability, but COVID hit us before we could, think straight through this, and it's brought the world to its knees. It's brought the economy to its knees, and we have to look at sustainability and make that center stage, and we are being forced to do so. So we are being forced to go back to nature and look at natural and locally available resources to increase availability and the option for livelihood, which is why that brings us back to the sustainable livelihoods that I felt so passionate about. And at the same time, it was also important to conserve these natural resources through enhancements of their quality and quantity. And no amount of effort could bring back natural resources unless we took care of it, and the management of it, unless the communities are involved. And we carry communities and women in particular, sensitize them and make them aware about that whole, the gold mine lying around us. So I congratulate Malu Natarajan for this very pertinent topic that you've chosen today. And thank you for inviting me to the formidable eminent speakers that we have here. Dr. Vandana Shiva, renowned Indian scholar, environmental activist, and anti-globalization author. Dia Mirza, actress, producer, social worker. You are now UN Environment's Goodwill Ambassador for India. Cara Tejpal, you're an avid writer, wildlife conservationist, and eco-warrior. Bittu Sahgal, who needs no introduction, though neither of you, but we have an old relationship with Bittu. And I would like to also reiterate here that Bittu is that environmental activist who's so well known to us and the founder of the Sanctuary Nature Foundation, an Indian NGO, which has worked on environmental policy over the years. So with this formidable team here, we must not waste anyone's time, and I want to carry on with the topic through, and I mean, look forward that to be guided from all of us in FLO in how to work towards our vision of sustainable livelihood for women, economic empowerment, with special emphasis on nature and natural resources. So thank you very much, and over to you, Ma'am.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Janabi. And I request Janabi to hand over the green gifts to our panelists, please. IT.
Bittu Sahgal.
Wow, thank you.
As from Sundarbans, the park will be planted in your honor, Bittu.
This is a trend that Janabi started, and it's such a fabulous initiative. So thanks, Janabi, for that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Next one, please.
This is for Cara Tejpal in your honor in Sundarbans.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Next, please.
This is for Dia Mirza in your honor in Sundarbans National Park.
Next, please.
And Dr. Vandana Shiva, again in your honor in Sundarbans National Park. It's a ticket of 5 trees each.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Our moderator for the session is Bittu Sahgal, the man with the golden heart, or should I say a man with a green heart. I can speak for hours about Bittu, but due to time constraint, I'm going to make it very short. He's the founder of the Sanctuary Nature Foundation, editor of the Sanctuary Asia, India's first and largest circulating wildlife and ecology magazine, founder editor of Sanctuary Cub, India's oldest and the only wildlife magazine for children. He has also produced 30 wildlife documentaries and led national and international environmental campaigns. He created Kids for Tiger, a conservation program for school children that has reached over 1 million children. He works with policymakers, social workers, economists, and scientists at the tri-junction of biodiversity, climate change, and economics. He is a speaker at the national and international platforms in support of wildlife conservation. Over to you, Bittu. Yes, I stopped. Bittu, unmute yourself, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Malu. I have to say that, I got married to this one wonderful woman who gave me 2 wonderful women. And these 3 women have guided my life for all my life. And at one point, I have a daughter called Tara, who's somewhat of a firebrand. And I told her at the dining table once that, look, you cannot declare war on half of humanity, And she actually almost virtually spat back at me, Dad, stop it. You're an honorary woman. You don't understand, trained by us. So the point...
You are making a theory which is does not have...
Oops. So the thing is basically this. Look, the people that we've got speaking with us today, I won't take much time at all. I can just say this, that whenever I hear people like Aryan, that young boy, I start with an apology, because it's one thing for us to have driven the British out and said that, look, now we've gained independence. But what we're engaged in right now is actually intergenerational colonization. Theirs was just geographic, So in this situation, it's one thing to sit down and cry about what has happened and what is happening. And we don't have the luxury of that for that as well. So the 3 people that you introduced, I'll just put a slightly different facet and then I'll leave this evening to them. I've known Vandana for 40 years. I was inspired by her, in awe of her. My family is in awe of her. And it has been so for 40 years. There's been one human being who's affected her in a great way, and me as well. I miss Teddy Goldsmith, Vandana. I miss him very greatly, because everything that's happening in the world today, Teddy had sort of, I won't say predicted, he had calculated that there is no option but for this to happen if we carry on behaving this way. As far as Dia is concerned, Dia, what shall I say? She's, yes, she's very well known. Yes, she's an actor. Yes, she's also an entrepreneur. And yes, she is also, an ambassador, goodwill ambassador for the United Nations Environment Program. I'll say one thing for Dia. It's very easy to categorize people from Bollywood as being, oh, they're this. Dia is not that. She's broken that mold. She's very real. She cares. And she's practical. And I believe that this world will be in better hands when young women like her... Oops.
Please mute yourself.
Have a housekeeping problem here.
Yeah,
no,
sorry about that.
Don't worry. That's perfectly fine. As far as Cara is concerned, what should I say? When you're running a long marathon, particularly at the end of it, you get tired, And if you had to run from one place to another, normally these marathons, the ones that we're running, they're not really races. They're actually relays. So if one had to hand over a green button to somebody at the end of your tether, when your legs are tired and your brain is completely fried, then Cara is the kind of person one would like to hand it over to, because she's got her values right, she's got her head right, and she says it as it is. She came to us at the age of 11, and I consider Cara and many, many other young people like her as the success stories for a strategy that we had many years ago. And that was that get them young, talk to them. We don't just want to leave a better world for them. We want to leave better kids for our world as well. Cara, you've done well. Within this context, I would just like to say this, that we're going through a pandemic right now. This pandemic is not something that wasn't anticipated. It was anticipated. What we undercalculated was the men, by and large, who ran the destinies of countries over the last 70 years have so devalued the natural capital. Even that word capital is almost like a capitalist word to use, which is not a bad thing to do. But as somebody who's been working with bankers and economists for a long time, if you underestimate your asset, you're destined to lose it. And that's what we've done. So if there is a battle to be fought right now, that battle is to be fought not against nature. The battle is to be fought against our own human nature. And each one of us, we're guilty of, perhaps what we're guilty of is like when you have a child who from the spastic, what was the spastic society, they call them intelligent minds in disobedient bodies. What we are is basically intelligent minds in disobedient lifestyles. So we've got to change that. We've got to consume less, be happy with less. And India had that to export to the world. And there was no need for us to import false ambition. So the three women who are here today, I will leave this to them. I would like to start with Vandana. And I would like you, Vandana, to talk to us about everything you do. I mean, nuclear physicist at one level, existentialist of some different kind at another level. I am awed by you and I would like you to speak to us. The floor is yours, mic is yours. Would somebody...
Thank you, Bittu. Thank you, Malu. Thank you, Janvi. And thank you, Aryan. You know, we gave the story of colonialism, which is today biopiracy. There's a brilliant person who'd worked with Gandhi and wrote many books and showed that everything that was claimed to be a discovery of England had actually been taken from here. And you were talking about turmeric latte, but steel making, shipbuilding, even the smallpox vaccine, the variolation used to happen in India. Then it was taken and then it was banned here. Exactly an issue of biopiracy that I have had to deal with for the last 3 decades, of taking our name and patenting it. And we fought for 11 years on a patent on neem. And I'm so grateful that after 11 years, I fought the case with 2 other women friends with no money, just love, friendship, and dedication to protect the integrity of life, the integrity of our culture. 11 years we fought and we defeated the US government and the biggest corporation at that time dealing with this kind of W.R. Grace, which had contaminated water everywhere, big chemical giant. And the patent had to be revoked. And then the basmati patent and the wheat. Our wheats don't give an allergy. They don't give celiac disease. So Monsanto, my favorite friend, had patented it. And we had to fight that one too. And thousands of patents have been taken off for our medicinal plants. So where are we at today? Why are we looking for nature-based solutions? What's the problem? In my view, the first problem is not only was there an artificial worldview created that nature is dead. You know, I did quantum theory. And in quantum theory, people like Schrödinger talk about life and consciousness with no embarrassment. And yet the mechanistic scientists, the Bacons and the Newtons and the Descartes, went out of the way that when you torture an animal and it cries, it's just the squeaking of the machine. Don't worry, it's not a sentient being. It's just a machine. It's dead, inert matter. Go ahead and violate it. And it is an irony that Bacon, who was the father of modern science, wrote a book called The Masculine Birth of Time, about which I've written in Staying Alive, book I wrote in the 80s. He died, he thought he'd have conquest over Mother Earth. He stuffed a chicken to see how much it tolerate of being stuffed with snow. And he got the pneumonia and died. The chicken survived. Gives us a lesson of the resilience of nature. I think the second problem is the idea of limitlessness. Everything has limits. Every living thing has limits. The tiny cell has a cell wall. Our body might be interacting with our beings, but we do have countries have boundaries and borders, and the planet has its planetary boundaries. And this blindness to say, I am so powerful, I'm going to rupture every boundary, is why we have climate change, is why we have species extinction, is why we have not the corona pandemic, but before the Ebola, MERS, and the Zikas, and the 300 new diseases that have come as a result of invading into forest systems, and then the amplification, either through factory farms or through genetic manipulation. But in a balanced nature, trillions of beings live together, and they don't cause disease. We, as human beings, actually are healthy. We have 100 trillion microbes in our gut. When they start to die because of pesticides in our food, that's when we become unhealthy. And part of the big problem that we face is, as Aryan so beautifully put it, we're a biodiversity-based civilization. And we consciously maintained that, recognizing limits, recognizing that no one can take more than they share. The Ishopanishad and Gandhi's beautiful synthesis, the earth has enough for everyone's needs, but not for a few people, is that there can be enough for all, not without having to take too much. You can leave enough for the elephants and the birds and the butterflies and the earthworms and the microbes in the soil and the microbes in your gut, and you live well. But nature is dead. I'm thinking that fossil fuels could substitute life.
Samir,
we created the climate problem. We created an agriculture based on fuels.
Samir,
the fossil fuels, every one of them, synthetic chemical fertilizers, synthetic pesticides, are all fossil fuel based. And you might remember just a little over a month ago, a warehouse blew up with ammonium nitrate. Now, ammonium nitrate can be used both as an explosive, which is where its origins are in Hitler's Germany, or it can be used as synthetic fertilizer, which absolutely destroys the soils. And the use of fertilizer has killed the soil to the extent that what they call the response has gone down from 13 kilograms per kilogram of nitrogen, and the nitrogen is emitting nitrogen oxide. It's running into oceans and creating dead zones. And the World Bank in Africa has just put out a study that the nitrates in water are creating stunting for children and huge loss of the economy. These were left as externalities in a system that's based on just extraction, profits, greed. And Aryan talked about plastics, also made from fossil fuels. So we are in a fossil fuel culture when we were in a biodiversity culture. And my life over the last 5 decades has been dedicated to not just protecting every bit of that biodiversity, whether it be the forests in the Himalaya, where I volunteered as a young student, movement, or all of my time now with agriculture. And what I realized is, both because of my training in physics and quantum theory, as well as my ecological work, both the activism as well as the research, that we've been just told a lot of nonsense. And we have to get rid of that. We've got to get the garbage out from outside. We've got to get the garbage out of our diet and our gut. And we've got to get the garbage out of our brain. So I'll give you an indicator, 2 indicators that are destroying this planet. GDP. Well, we've collapsed 23% GDP. Isn't it time to get rid of that sacred? Because all it measures is how much did you take out of the forest? How much did you take out of the river? How much did you take out of a mine? It doesn't measure how much did you give back. And the women's economy, this is something I would love to work with on FLO, to create a women-centered, earth-centered economy. These are the writings I'm doing these days. And these circular regenerative economies actually produce more. But because of that limited linear mind of input, output, and throw the rest as externalities, they did not know how to work with nonlinear feedback, giving back, gratitude to the earth. That's what I've done with organic. For me, organic farming is not a production system. Organic farming is gratitude for the earth. We took from you, you gave us so much food, so much fiber, so much of the leaves that Aryan described, so much of the neem tooth brush. You gave us so much. I will give two things back to you. A little bit of what you gave us, a little bit of organic matter, and a little bit of my efforts and my love and my care. These economies of care are the economies women have always built, economies that we will have to all build. And when people say, oh, you're saying it only for women, I'm saying, no, no, no. Women's knowledge and work was treated as not knowledge and not work. Women were subjugated. Women were treated as a second sex. It is now time to recognize that nature is living and is a teacher, and women can be the teacher of how to work with nature rather than declare war against her to bring us to the brink, so that the extinction that 200 species a day are facing, 1 million additional, this talking about 70%, 80% species having had huge population decline. But they don't honestly admit, if you create chemicals to kill insects, insects will go. If you create Roundup and glyphosate to spray to get rid of plants and you call them weeds, not only will the plants and weeds go, I have a very strong feeling that a large part of the fires of California are related not just to the fact that climate change is happening, but the land has been so desiccated because glyphosate is used as a desiccant to kill plants. Now, when nothing is going back, no humus is returning to the soil, you really are ready for wildfires. And the indigenous people of Australia, the indigenous people of America knew how to manage fires so that they constantly recycle organic matter. And one of the nature-based learnings we need is the word for fertile soil, for organic matter in soil, is humus. Humus is the original Latin word for soil, living soil. Humus is also the origin of the word human. In the Jewish tradition, in the Hebrew tradition, the word Adam, which means the human being, comes from Adamus, which is soil. Humidity is what makes soil living. Desiccation, dryness, desertification is what kills soil. And I always say, the problem with the fossil fuel system that displaced our biodiversity economies, that gave us life, that gave us culture, that gave us livelihoods, that fossil fuels have given us not just death, they have given us wars, but worse, they have fossilized our brains into a mechanistic thought, and they have frozen and fossilized our hearts. They have desertified our souls. And this is our work now. If we turn to nature for solution she offers, what is she offering a solution to? A crazy agriculture system that has pushed every fourth Indian to hunger. 880,000 kids are already dying because of malnutrition in India. And according to the UNICEF, the lockdown will lead to 1.3 million deaths globally of children every year. We got hunger. We didn't have obesity and diabetes, and we didn't have cancer as an epidemic. And we definitely didn't have neurodegenerative diseases. I remember it as a child, 98-year-old, 100-year-old people could just rattle off 500 years history. And today everyone's got dementia. These neurodegenerative problems all linked to the toxics in our food, to the junk food. But we can do better if we take nature as our teacher. This is what I've done in the last 35 years by building Navdanya. We grow more food by calculating not a commodity, but the nutrition, not the yield, but the health per acre. our farmers earn 10 times more. Doubling farm incomes is a very pathetic threshold. If we don't steal from the farmers, if we don't steal from the earth, the farmers can have a tenfold income. Farmers don't have to get into debt if they're not buying GMO seeds and BT cotton and synthetic pesticides, because the BT cotton has failed, as the scientists have now proven. More importantly than that, you protect a little bit of biodiversity, nature does the rest of protecting the rest of the web of life. This mechanistic idea is that we've got to fix everything. No, no, no. We just have to do our little bit of stopping the aggression and doing the service. And we have 6 times more pollinators on our farm at Navdanya, where we also run an Earth University. And to young people like Aryan and to everyone else who's listening, you know, in October, this relay that Bittu talked about, we are beginning a whole program of youth leadership for Earth democracy. How do we live on this earth in a democracy of all life? Democracy for the elephant and the democracy for the bees and the democracy for the future generations. Most importantly, I would love for FLO in this next year of looking for sustainable livelihoods to put regeneration of biodiversity at the heart. And we at Navdanya are willing to partner with you. Let us make sure that every child puts food and no child goes hungry. Let us make sure women take the lead in shaping another agriculture system and another forestry system. And let us make sure our ability to prevent the destruction is strengthened. That is true democracy. It's a joy being with all of you.
Vandana, it's a joy always listening to you. Thank you. I'm inevitably stunned by the fact that you can hold my attention forever and ever and ever and ever. And I've heard you so many times. Thank you. There will be time at the end of this for us to have, thoughts that we can express. I hope there'll be time for a Q&A as well. But may I ask you, Dia, to speak with us? You fulfilled one of the things that I've told kids all the time to do, that don't try to be a forest guard with a lathi. Don't try to be an engineer if you happen to be an artist. Don't be an artist if you can't be an artist. Be who you are, and you'll turn what you are good at to the benefit of this planet. And Dia has done just that. She is a professional. She is warm-hearted, and it's not for nothing that she's the ambassador for the United Nations Environment Program. It's something that I think the corporate sector, governments, policymakers will be kneeling before as the months and years go by. So Dia, speak with us. Tell us about your story. I believe you've got a small film that you'd like to show. You can.
I think we should start with showing that.
All right. So is that possible for us to do?
It represents everything that we've been working on together over the last few years.
Yes, Dia.
Please show the Kids for Tigers film, please.
Okay.
IT. Thanks.
Yes, you grown-ups. We've been watching you. You've lost.
That audio is somewhat off. Hello?
IT?
Can you just stop it and play it again, please?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. IT, can you stop and play again? IT? Rajkumar, can you stop it?
Alu, you might have to just call him on a phone or something.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I'm doing that, yeah.
I think he can hear it well.
One sec, I'm calling him.
Birds, monkeys, where will the animals go? Where will we go? Where will we go? Where will we go? Just like we represent the future. Our tigers represent all nature.
Rajkumar, the audio was very bad. Can you play it again, please?
I sort of bit my tongue at that, but
sorry, dear, about that. There was some,
no problem.
This is due to bad network, ma'am, basically. No?
Sorry?
This is due to poor network at my end, I believe.
Yeah.
then maybe we should show it from somewhere else, but maybe, I don't know.
One sec.
Should I try again?
Please try, and if it's bad,
Try,
please
but
stop
if
it
it's bad,
immediately.
If it's bad, just stop it immediately because it hurts the ear.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks.
One moment.
It's a film we've shown to almost 150,000 children and their parents. So it's a very short, very, very telling film.
No, please stop.
No.
Please stop.
No. No.
Stop.
It's not working.
Stop. I think.
Not just because I'm majestic.
Rajkumar, can you stop it, please?
Because they are there.
Can you stop the video, please?
Peter, wrong. You end up leaving
Rajkumar, can you stop it?
Can you communicate with him through any medium? He is not listening to you, I think.
Yes. Rajkumar, can you stop it? And can you give me the share screen option, please? Let me try.
I'm sorry that this is happening.
I'm very sorry about that.
No, not to worry. I thought this was picked out, but that's why I said right at the start that while technology is wonderful, sometimes it doesn't quite keep pace. Doesn't matter. It's a good lesson.
We were very keen to share this film with all you wonderful ladies today for many reasons. One, of course, is the fact that children are a very powerful voice, and their sense of empathy, their response to all that they learn through the Kids for Tigers program is absolutely inspiring and has motivated both Bittu and me over the years. It's a partnership that helped us make this film. The love and the learning. I consider Bittu a mentor. He's somebody who's really encouraged me and shaped my understanding of what it is that we need to do and how I can use the power of communication and visual communication to convey and translate the thoughts that we have and create the opportunities for better understanding and, of course, change human behavior. The Kids for Tigers film was directed by me and was written by Cara Tejpal and Sahil Sanga. So this is something that the children in our lives came together to do, and I hope that we can share it. And if we can't, then we'll just continue with the conversation.
Let me try it once, Dia. Just give me a minute.
Okay. Sure.
Malu, would you like me to try?
Can you see it? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, it's clear.
But we can't hear it. So you might want to just go back a little bit and start again. There's no audio.
You can't hear?
No, there's no audio.
Shit, yeah. Uh-oh.
No audio.
Malu, let me share my screen.
Yeah, can you share yours, please?
Yeah, you need the stop sharing.
Yeah, perhaps we can put a link to the video on the chat. So
Yeah,
that
might
watch it later.
Sure, and then everybody can watch it later.
Malu, stop sharing. Dia, just give it a try. One last shot.
Yeah.
Maybe third time lucky, guys.
Yeah.
Hey you, yes you, grown-ups. We've been watching you. You seem lost. So let us give you a clue. The deal is, we love tigers. Not just because they are strong and majestic or big and beautiful. We love tigers because they are rare and necessary. Our tigers live in our forests. And when you leave them alone, free to breed in the wild, free to roam, you end up leaving our forests alone. Then our forests can collect all the rain. The rain that feeds our rivers and nourishes our mountains and our plains. And you grown-ups, you do such horrible things. You poach tigers and you hurt living beings. Sell them by the skin, teeth and even their claws. Why do you destroy our forests and trees when all the trees are gone? Where will our tigers go? And when all the rivers and forests are gone, where will the elephants, the fox, birds, monkeys? Where will the animals go? Where will we go? Where will we go? Where will we go? Just like we represent the future, our tigers represent all nature. We know that even grown-ups can't fix everything, but you need to leave us a planet worth living. All of us need clean water and clean air. So we need the tiger, the elephant, and even the bear. Remember, grown-ups, each time you hurt nature for the sake of money and wealth, you hurt each one of us. Our lives, our health. The tiger and nature are not asking for much. If you leave them alone, they will heal and take care of us.
Thank you. I'm so glad we could view that film. In many ways, this film is a representation of some of the things that I've grown to understand and learn. I just want to start off with saying a very big thank you to Janvi and Malu, and of course Bittu, who's, as I've already mentioned, a mentor, and I'm always delighted to be a part of such conversations. And I consider myself privileged to be sharing this time with a lady I admire deeply, Vandana Shiva. And Cara is somebody, again, who I admire and I respect tremendously. And I'm so glad that we are comrades and we are working together towards a shared goal. I want to start off with saying that it doesn't matter what profession we are in and what line of work we pursue. There is always a way to work with people and work for the planet, because I think very early in life, I was encouraged to understand how all life on earth is connected and how all of us are co-inhabitants, and that the only place that I can think of as my residence and my home is the planet. And I'm grateful for this foundation, for this understanding, because I don't know if I would have been able to respond to many of the things that have been able to in the last 15, 20 years if I had not learned this very early in life. I think what set me on the path for climate action and to work with environmentalists in our country and globally was an observation I made early in my film career, that very little, too less was being done to convey the emergency that we are confronted with in mainstream media. So there were, of course, conversations happening about climate change and global warming, and scientists were raising alarm bells, and extraordinary work was happening by individuals in various fields. But none of this was really making it to mainstream media. And I felt almost responsible for it. And I felt like I had to do more to engage with civil society and take this good work that good people were doing, and this awareness and the urgency of the information that the science was bringing to us to mainstream. And that's how I actually started working with Sanctuary Asia and Bittu Sahgal. I pursued him relentlessly because I think initially he wasn't sure whether I would walk the talk and whether I would have the time to see through or go through with my commitment towards this cause. But I think he realized after a few months that I was sincere and I really wanted to help make a difference and take his voice and the voice of all these incredible environmentalists to the people and to children. And I've been fortunate enough to work with him over the last 12, 13 years. And alongside that, I've managed to work with many other people. But what I do want to emphasize on today, given that I'm addressing such a wonderful community of women who have already understood that we need to adopt the Sustainable Development Goals, who are using the FLO and are genuinely reconsidering how they need to move forward as individuals and as stakeholders of civil society. I truly believe, and this is something that science is evidencing, that women and children are most impacted by climate change. And if we truly want to make a difference in this world, we need to start building lives and readdressing our patterns of consumption and production. There are a few things that not too many people are aware of, but and I think for some reason, because we've built lives that are so removed from a natural environment, that are so away from a nature, we at some level have started perceiving ourselves as separate from nature, when in fact we are not. We're all a part of nature. And everything that we do to nature, we're in fact doing to ourselves. So if our fundamental right to life is to breathe clean air, then we have to understand that our consumption patterns affects the quality of air. How we manage our waste affects the quality of air, it affects the quality of our soils, it affects and impacts our waterways, our rivers, our oceans, marine life. So everything that we are doing in everyday life is affecting our collective health. And I think what this pandemic has done is that it is right and center, put into context and helped all of us recognize that our health, our peace, our progress, our well-being, everything that we can hope to be or become is directly connected to the environment. And how we treat the environment will impact or will result in how we go forward as a human race, as a human species. There are a few things that I want to point to that may help us build better perspective about this and make the urgency to address our consumption patterns and how we live our everyday lives a little more mindful. So our country occupies 2.4% of the geographical landmass of this planet. And we are home to the world's second largest population. This statistic itself should indicate what a huge pressure we are putting on our natural resources. There was a time where India had uninterrupted, free-flowing forests that, of course, were, the birthing grounds for our rivers, now reduced to less than 21%, of which only 5% is dense forest. This is very alarming. And alarming because we all know that water is lifeblood. We all need water to survive. We need water for practically everything that we use and we need in our daily lives. So what are the things that we can do at an individual level? Yes, climate change is alarming. Yes, when we discover these things, it can be extremely unsettling. But I think we need to ask of ourselves, what are the measures that we can take on a daily basis to improve our relationship with nature and build back a world that we truly deserve and we inherit it because this planet is perfect, it's beautiful, it's magical, it supports a abundance and a diversity of life that no other planet does, at least no other planet that we know of does. So what have we done wrong? I think the one thing that we've done wrong that Vandana ji so eloquently conveyed to us is we've operated from a place of ego. We've had this arrogance. We've almost felt like the earth has like this limitless offering to us and we can exploit and take and just not give back. So one of the things that I think all of us can identify doing is how are we giving back? Afforestation, planting more trees, supporting organizations and groups that are regenerating biodiversity, supporting policy and fighting for policy that protects our environmental policies, building companies and businesses that work with nature and work with nature-based solutions. At a personal, individual level, segregate waste at home, reduce consumption of plastic, avoid single-use plastics absolutely and completely. Consider what are the ingredients, where is it growing, what is it that we are consuming on a daily basis, how does it impact the planet, and how does it impact your health and your life. I think it's very important. I mean, what good is our education if we are not going to read and understand what we are eating and where it's coming from and how, whether it's being responsibly packaged or not. The third thing that we can all do is to manage our resources more with more consideration. So stop wasting water, stop wasting electricity. Use all of these things that we do every day unthinkingly because it's abundantly and easily accessible and available to us with a little more mindfulness and consciousness. I think it goes a big distance. And support groups, support conservationists, people who are fighting to protect wildlife, to secure our biodiversity. I think that will make a very big difference. And lastly, use your voice, use your understanding and share it with more people. I think it makes a very big difference. I know for a fact that since I've started sharing my understanding and my discoveries and the changes that I've been able to make in my everyday lives, whether it's the traveling bottle that goes with me everywhere I go and I just refill it and drink it, and I've absolutely stopped using packaged water for over 3.5 years. I know that I've been able to build a community of more people who are doing the same within my industry as well. And it's so wonderful to see it becoming stylish and a statement, so to speak. And these are the kind of statements we need to make, that we are going to live with the understanding that we are co-inhabitants of one planet. We are citizens that will live more responsibly because we understand now more than ever before that everything that we hope for from life comes to us from Earth. And we need to love, protect, be compassionate, and more empathetic towards the way we respond to our mother, our Earth. I'm going to end this with saying a big thank you to Aryan because your message was powerful. And I do know that children are born with a natural and innate instinct to understand how deeply connected all life on Earth is. I think as we grow up, it's kind of beaten out of our system. But I hope, Aryan, you will continue to be the kind of child that doesn't just leave a better planet for your future generations, but leaves better children for this amazing planet. Thank you so much for having me.
As always, Dia, that's a big hug for you. Thank you. Thank you. You speak from heart and you speak effectively and you're a good ambassador and you've honed in on the right guy. That little Aryan is the future. And just yesterday, Cara was Aryan, you know. So Cara, this is the baton's in your hand. I'm waiting to hear what you've got to say. This is your mic. This is your time.
Thanks, Bittu sir. And I'm very privileged and happy to have this captive audience because I do have a lot of things I would like to talk about. And I'd like to start with addressing that apology that you've been giving me for over 15 years of my life now, Bittu sir. And it's an apology I do not accept. I'm very angry and I am very legitimately angry. I think the one thing we have failed to address in this panel discussion so far is the absolute disaster that is environmental governance in India today. This is not a topic that I want to beat around the bush about, and it's not something that I'm going to be very diplomatic about, because we are in a climate crisis. We are in a crisis of mass extinctions. We are facing the consequences of a pandemic. The most vulnerable and poor communities are facing the worst impacts of all these crises. And so really it is a time for educated India and rich educated India, that's all of us on this panel and listening in, to consider the state of the environment. The reason I think we need to consider the state of the environment is that the average educated Indian is also ecologically illiterate. We have very little knowledge about the life systems that support us, about the fantastic, just mind-blowing biodiversity of this country and of this planet, and of the services that these provide us.
Rani dekhengi, nahi dekhengi.
I'm not one to trivialize or kind of filter down nature into just its utility and into what it gives us, but that is also, I believe, a powerful argument. When I talk about these crises, when I talk about environmental governance, I would first like to paint a picture of what our country is looking like right now. As privileged Indians, a lot of us have been able to insulate ourselves from the worst impacts of climate change, from environmental degradation, from even looking at it. And I think when you put that into perspective, you think about the Environment Performance Index, which is a global kind of analysis of different countries' environmental performance. India currently ranks 168 of 180 countries. We have some of the most polluted cities in the world. We know that a third of Indian soil is degraded, and this term desertification is underway. And while I talk about environmental governance, what toggles into this is also corporate accountability. I know a lot of you who are listening in may be working with or known to large corporates, and I think this is a time for us and each one of us who works with them or for them to be questioning the policies that are in place and whether they truly benefit society. I think when I say I'm angry, it doesn't mean I'm without hope. I'm also a very hopeful person, and I have many moments of optimism. And I would like to illustrate this to you by talking about the ongoing and recent events surrounding the draft EIA. The EIA is the Environment Impact Assessment. This year, the government came out with a draft EIA 2020, which was widely panned by environmentalists, by activists, by social workers, and by the general Indian public. This came out during the pandemic when everyone was locked down, and a movement to protect the EIA snowballed very rapidly online. There are many drawbacks to the EIA. The EIA is a regulatory process that any industry has to go through to function. In essence, it protects the environment. It lets you know how good or how bad a project is, whether the project is worth the environmental damage and ecological costs that will be incurred. The draft notification was widely panned. Any of you can Google it and read more about it. But what was really, really immense, what was so amazing and so stunning for me, I've been working in this field for a decade now, much more if I count the fact that I started when I was 11, is that over 2 million Indians made submissions publicly and privately to the government, calling for the EIA to be withdrawn. In my lifetime, I have not seen that kind of environmental activism. I have not seen that kind of public support for environmental issues. And it kind of drives home the point that more and more people are beginning to wake up to the issues that are quite blatant to all of us who work in this sector. When environmental governance in India is currently abysmal, we are fighting battles every day. There are a number of ongoing national campaigns for various causes. You name a state, I could probably tell you about a few grassroots movements that have activated over there and who are vying for national attention, but more importantly for better governance and for policy for policy improvement. You know, it was a bit intimidating to think about being on this panel. Dia, of course, is a friend, and Bittu is my mentor, but Dr. Shiva is extremely articulate and knows so much about the issues that we're talking about. And so this morning, while I was writing notes about things that I would like to talk about, I ended up with so many pages, it would take me 3 hours to go through them. I don't want to get into particular and different issues. What I would really very much like is for all of us to begin to acknowledge and recognize the impacts of the scale, not the impacts, the scale of the environmental crisis that the world is currently facing. And what it means for us as a species. You know, at the beginning of this talk, there was the phrase "save the planet" or "save the earth" thrown around. And I have to say that the earth doesn't need saving. You know, it's at this point, it's really about us as a species and the trajectory we want to take. The earth will go on. It really depends on how we want to be perceived, whether we want to survive, whether we want to continue. When we look at the climate crisis, we know that there are extreme weather events that are becoming more and more common. We know that these are triggering feedback loops and cascade effects that have already started to impact the most vulnerable communities on the planet, and no doubt will soon begin to impact the less vulnerable communities. We also know that it's a question of humanity at the end of the day. It's a question of compassion. It's a question of right and wrong. Are we really willing to sacrifice the health of our people, the health of our species, and the health of our planet for momentary ambitions and false aspirations that a capitalist and consumer-driven society have gifted to us? I'm not going to go on. I do hope that some of you will ask questions about some of the campaigns that are currently underway in India, because there's so much to be said about them. And there are very many incredible champions who are forwarding these causes and who deserve recognition and support from each one of us. I do also want to say that while I absolutely endorse Dia's proposition that each one of us needs to personally be looking at sustainability and making better choices, I know for a fact that is not going to be enough unless we have better environmental governance and we have systemic change. And that is something that falls on each one of our shoulders. Bittu sir, the reason I do not accept your apology is because I know that the 12-year-old who is a climate activist today, by the time they are 45 years old and in a position of power, it may be too late. So it's not yet time for all of you who are above the age of 35, 40 to be handing over those batons and kind of giving us an apology and moving on. This is crunch time, and the decisions that need to be made today. The youth is there to support, to rally, and to really bring in new ideas. I'm going to end on the note that I truly believe the capacity for human compassion, the capacity of human intelligence is infinite. And if we believe that this is all we are capable of, a world that is ravaged, a world that is unfair and unkind and brutal, then that's a failure of our personal imaginations and not of the human capacity. So thank you for that.
Hey, my dear Tara, thank you. It's supposed to be the elders that inspire and things like this, but I think a time is coming when it's going to be the other way around. Before we start asking the questions, let me just say that when we talk of nature-based solutions, we have presented to the Congress Party, we presented it to the BJP, we presented it to Niti Aayog, we presented it to corporates. We've had, Cara has sat in on a number of these. We've had at least 8 or 9 major roundtable sessions, and we have a simple solution right now, nature-based. It's expressible within 60 to 90 seconds. People have migrated from the city back into their lands. India is one of the largest large dam builders in the world, and Maharashtra, where I'm sitting right now, is the largest one in India. A dam is only as good as its catchment forest. Catchment forest is the land that catches the rain. and channels it down either into the riverbed or into the aquifers or into wetlands. Now, what we've done is that we have built the dams as contractors. Then everybody and their son-in-law's third cousin was given the permission to ravage the catchment and turn it bald. As to the children, I'd say taklu bana diya, you know. And the result is that when the rain falls, there's no sponge, and therefore it comes as a flood. And when that flood is there, there's nothing held back. So what's the solution? What's the nature-based solution? When I hear ministers say, I'll plant 4 crore trees, I'll plant 3 crore trees, I cringe, because you cannot plant trees. We were not born to plant trees. We are primates. Now we've grown out of that, and the current primates that we see, they are the gardeners of Eden. So with these large dam catchments, Narmada, you name it, Brahmaputra, all these large catchments, all we need to do is to get people to come back and work at the bottom of the GDP ladder. We need to give them employment to help return nature back to the way it was. And that is not necessarily by just planting trees, because the butterflies do it, the bees do it, the monkeys do it, the wild boar do it, the deer do it. They're the ones who created the garden. Hum to Amir Baap ke Amir bete the. We just landed up here. So it's not as though we have to spend billions of dollars. I am sick to my teeth of seeing these international negotiations where everybody goes there really looking to find out how much money they can protect and make, and not how much land they can restore. So nature-based solutions, nature needs half. It's like the liver, the analogy. You can drink up to a point. If 70% of your liver is gone, it can still regenerate. You go beyond 75%, and then you don't need to do any more damage. And we are approaching that tipping point now. The best nature-based solution that India can think of is to put 20, 30, 40 million people back to work where they are, to repair the catchments, so that when the rain falls, those catchments, improves lean season flows of water, it improves floods, it fills the wells that will feed the farms, and so on and so forth, all through the various sectors of industry that we have. Sanctuary is working at the tri-junction of biodiversity, economics, and climate change, which is the spoiler for both biodiversity and climate change. And this pandemic that we see is nothing, as Vandana so correctly pointed out, it is nothing but the fact that we have tampered with nature and believed that we have become the gods we've invented. So I think a touch of humility, and those horsemen of the apocalypse, ignorance, arrogance, avarice, and apathy. It's about time we put them to rest. And it's not very difficult to understand. The children understand instantly. We do climate change workshops for pre-primary children. And they say, Bittu uncle, when it's so simple, why don't people understand? So let's put it like this. There should be questions here. Janabi, Malu, you have a panel of people. I don't know how much time. I think it's 15 minutes more, but I'm ready to stay on as long as you like. So over to you. Thank you very, very much, the three of you. I mean, thank you.
Thank you so much, Bittu. I thought you had one question for Janabi.
Janavi, I do have a question for you. The question I have is that most of us who are running, way out, we find that the support system at the back isn't quite with us. So we would like from FLO some kind of wind under our wings. We're running a campaign right now. It says, stop slaughtering wildlife, prevent the next pandemic. It's the only thing that really is going to catch the minds of people, and the only thing that's going to save lives now. I'd urge FLO to look at this and speak within your own homes, to your own families, to the people who you can influence, and express to them that it is easy for us to go back to the communities that actually live next to these ecosystems, that understand them, because these ecosystems are not wastelands. They are the infrastructures that allow ports, that allow roads, bridges. All these things are a result of the infrastructures of nature. I would like very much for you to take up what Vandana said, work with her on the issue of food, work with us on the restoration of life in that soil, in that carbon-filled biodiversity, beautiful, wonderful smelling soil that you like to see when the rain falls. And we can solve this problem like a cut on your hand. Everything can get fixed, but it won't get fixed if we keep teasing the wound and hurting it and pouring poison in it. So I'm sorry, I shouldn't have taken this time. I would rather have this time.
I couldn't agree more with you. And may I tell you, I mean, Malu knows, since we took over, I took over in May, we've been talking about this. This has been my primary focus. Like I said, where I come from is all about sustainability. And probably FLO didn't understand that time when I spoke about my emphasis on sustainable practices and sustainable livelihoods. I thought that's the only way. I mean, that's the way where we come from. And for us in the Northeast with this fragile ecosystem, and for me being a practitioner of tourism for the last 30 years, we've always advocated, as you well know, that we're looking for high-end, low-impact tourism. But tourism is a model of sustainable development, sustainable livelihood. Now, when we say that, okay, COVID has done us in, but tourism impacts so many lives. And if you think about, if you look at our, everything is sustainable around us. For our areca, our tamul, our betel nut, the areca leaves. I was talking about one sustainable livelihood model where the areca leaves which are falling on the ground and being thrown away were put together and created the tamul, the organic tableware that now is being exported. This was banded by a group of young village women under a CSR fund by ONGC. This has been picked up in other villages. So all these raw materials which are around us, which can be made in biodegradable tableware that we had. And when we talk about our clay for our black pottery, when we talk about our bamboo, which is our wonder grass, we talk about our orchids, our silkworms that we weave, and the silkworm that we eat in the tribal communities. Everything is sustainable. We were part of nature. We live like that. But now we are more and more conscious that we need to empower our people, our children with the power of knowledge. And among my chapters in Uttarakhand, for instance, I met Dr. Joshi, who was an environmental activist, and we spoke about this. And he had talked about the Chipko movement, and I had told him that we would like to be able to be a part of something of that sort. Not the physical Chipko movement, but the raising that awareness, which is so important. All our chapters, throughout our 17 chapters, pan-India, and if your organization ties hands with us, there's nothing. It'll be really the answer to what I'm looking for. And I must tell you about this young man in Assam who started what he called the Green Commando. So he's created these batches of young people. They call themselves the Green Army. And they've been going village to village and teaching them about not only plantation, about the nutrients, and the women are also asked to eat food which is local to us. You don't have to buy or source, fruits and vegetables which are not local to us. And whatever is good for our own health systems. So there's such a synergy, and I'm so good to see these young people, the way they work. And I would love to bring him to the forefront. And I've spoken about his work to another organization. So basically, Uttarakhand, Dr. Joshi, and this young man in Assam, I'm trying to put them together. Wherever I can, I'm trying to put this eco warriors together. And with an organization like yours, it's a yes from FLO. We are ready to start whenever you are. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Thanks.
So we have these three wonderful women with us. I don't know what the protocol is for questions and things, but I'll go over to you on this session.
Thanks. Bittu, I know we're running out of time, but just one more question. We have Anu from California. She woke up at 5 in the morning. She's a great admirer of Vandana, and she has a question to ask.
Yes. Anu, go on.
Thank you. Calling from Fairfield, California. I woke up early to hear our Earth Warriors speak. Vandana, thank you for continuing to inspire us. My favorite saying when I used to work at Stop Waste was, waste is not a noun, it's a verb. Right? Vandana, as some organizations are shifting from a linear take, discard model to a circular economy model, that's going to take time. I see Aryan's generation as our inspiring ambassadors to make change on an individual level. So what is your advice to Aryan and others in his generation about how we use less, but more importantly, to see discards as precious resources?
Vandana, you're on mute. Yeah.
I never give advice. I live my life and hope, as Gandhi said, that your life is both your own teacher and your experience is an inspiration for others. So, it's not true that making change takes time. Change of paradigm, the wrong, first part of Gita says all you have to do is change the wrong thinking to the right thinking. And the wrong thinking is the earth is dead, she's there as raw material, she's there as a waste dump, use her, exploit her, throw her, burn her up, push a species to extinction. That wrong thinking must go. And I think all the speakers today reiterated that wrong thinking has gone. The reason we are activists to protect the earth is because we realized it was wrong thinking. So the wrong thinking is an instantaneous change. Second, the day I stop using chemicals in my farm, I have done a circular economy of nitrogen, of carbon, of water, of the hydrological system. 0.5% organic matter holds 80,000 liters. Bittu, this is the real watershed management, I noticed the circular economy has been hijacked by the waste managers who ship some part, 5%, of the plastic bottles across the world and recycle them somewhere. And I've seen some of these waste bottling plants because they invite me and then they take a photo. But right now, Kenya was banning plastic, and the Western oil companies and plastic companies put pressure because they recognize that, only 10% is so-called recycled. The rest is just thrown wherever there's a poor community. So circular economy is not about waste. It's about generating no waste. Nature knows no waste. Ecological societies know no waste. Just travel the length and breadth of India, where societies have not become industrialized and commercialized. There's no waste. It begins to pile up with the metropolitan cities who are then taking their plastic mountains to the poor villages. I'm having to find a big garbage dump in Doon Valley now. And, I am in Uttarakhand. I just wanted to tell Janvi this. And, for 50 years, I've been working with the women of Uttarakhand, beginning with the Chipko days. And we work with women, thousands and thousands of women in 5 valleys. You're very welcome. FLO should join with a women's group. Yeah. And all we need to do is find common programs. And, the women of the Garhwal are my teachers. And what I've been telling them is exactly like Bittu was saying, now all these young men had left the village and Corona sent them back. And now's the time to bring back the dignity of taking care of the forest and the land and the food, because part of fossilization, I've done so much work on the productivity issue. How can you say something more productive if you have fewer people working? How can you say farming will be most productive if there are no farmers on the land to take care of the land, and all you have is drones to spray Roundup, Every second day I have a struggle where pesticide spraying is being done in the name of saving us from Corona. But those pesticides will kill us with cancer long before the Corona kills us. And I think, the whole idea of work, I'm a physicist. The idea of work was to dispend your energy. Then along the way, it became how to get rid of work, And that's why the livelihood dignity that you're working on will not come back if we, don't recognize and reward work with nature, which I call co-creation. When you don't destroy nature and regenerate her, you are co-creating with nature. When you destroy her, you extract some element of her and throw the remaining elements as waste and pollution. You are not creating an economy. Economy means caring for our home, oikos. And that's why the only economy, the nature-based solution to the economy that weren't an economy is become an economy again, become part of taking care of our oikos, and therefore redefine work, not in destruction and mining and logging. And Bittu, I think the work you talk about, the infrastructure of life, we have to do so much work there. They talk about infrastructure without describing what it's about. And they're digging sand from the Ganga to make one other bypass and one other bypass and one other bypass, and chopping every tree. And the Sevagram children are fighting to protect the trees that Gandhi planted. And I call it the infrastructure for death, because if you destroy the trees, you pave everything up in cement and concrete, you mine every river for gravel and sand, you already killed the river. I know 5 sadhus who've given their lives for stopping the sand mining of the Ganga here in Hardwar and Rishikesh. And we are, I'm working on a dictionary. Wolfgang Sachs, who were a dear friend of Teddy's, we did a development dictionary. And the word resource used to mean that which regenerate on its own again and again and again. And then with industrialism, it became that which is raw material. No, a resource is not raw material. Resource is that which regenerates. Children are not a resource. Human beings are not a resource. And land is not a resource. Regeneration is the potential and the capacity. And similarly, work. We have to, I think someone used the term, the economy was the meaning, and capital, you'd use the word capital, Bittu. What capital used to mean? Heads of animals. Latin, caput, means heads of number. That was the economy. How many cattle do you have? Along the way, it became money. Then it became digital currency. And now it's mutating into cryptocurrency, where there's no relationship with the real things in the world or the real work that went into it. And it is becoming, as Gandhi said, commerce without morality and wealth without work. And we've got to bring wealth generation back into work. That is sustainable livelihoods. And we have to bring ecological ethics at the heart of commerce. Otherwise, nature has all the solutions, but a misguided missile can push our species to extinction. I always say nature and earth is too powerful. She has survived hot times and cold times. She's survived higher ocean levels and lower ocean levels. So we have a duty to care for her. But our real concern should be that little niche of the right climate, the right temperature, the right ecosystems, the right biodiversity, the right oxygen in our air. That is our obligation to maintain, just for being on earth and paying our rent, as Teddy used to say, and for future generations. As I said, the Isha Upanishad says, taking more than your share is stealing from nature and other species, it's stealing from other people, and it's stealing from the future. And all three are sins. That's why it's an issue of dharma and adharma.
Vandana, thank you. Thank you. I could keep on just sitting back and listening to you. Malu,
yes.
More questions. Yes.
Yes, John.
Yeah. So, Dr. Shiva, we're really going to take you up on that.
Yeah.
Sure. Malu, and very excited about this opportunity. Yes. And we've always, like I said, I've been fantasizing about the right people. And if you would guide us, and we can do our bit. And our motto this year, we've also tried to get each chapter to adopt a village each, and try to help on these lines on awareness, on sustainable livelihood, on handloom and handicrafts, and various other thoughts that we have, and we're trying to work towards that. Yeah. So I'll ask Malu to please be in touch with Dr. Shiva and see that we can take that forward.
Let's all stay in touch. Let's all stay in touch. Bittu, will you put us all in touch so this conversation
absolutely
continues and our work continues? And what I would propose, Bittu, is you remember, sadly, Wild got cancelled because of the corona, and we had so many ideas. But
Yes.
let's make a 10-year transition plan.
Yes.
So all species can thrive. This Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam culture doesn't get destroyed for ease of doing business.
Yes.
And you know, all the unemployed have work for regeneration. And you know, I think if the people who are involved in wildlife conservation, the women who are working, the women from business, those of us who are ecological scientists, we all come together and make this transition plan and basically say in the first 2 years, this is what needs to be done. And then the momentum will catch up. I think that's what you know, because nobody's thinking, everyone's thinking, how do you dismantle what exists? No
Vandana,
one is thinking, how do you build?
What you've described is something I would call the survival revolution, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that I think just the people who are on this and the ripples of influence around it can be done. I'm sure there are questions. I have Cara and I.
Bittu, just for Teddy's sake, you know what in 72 he wrote?
Yes.
The blueprint for survival.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have that with me there.
We should do our blueprint for survival now in India.
Done.
Yes, done.
Vandana.
Yes. I think we're really running out of time, but Vandana, we can listen to you for hours and hours together. So we're going to take up your offer for collaboration. We'll definitely do that. Janabi and I will work on that. I'm going to wrap it up by saying...
Malu, I would like to have Dia and Cara give us their last thoughts before...
Yes, please. Yes, yeah.
So Dia, you want to go? And Cara, we'll let you wrap.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity and let's work together. There is nothing more powerful than partnerships. I know that Dr. Vandana is somebody who is a formidable force that we can work closely with. I hope I get to work with you, ma'am, as well.
I look forward to it, dear.
I want to come and spend time with you and learn from you. I hope that the lockdowns ease up a bit and I can travel to you soon. But I just want to say that this is an existential crisis. I completely and wholeheartedly agree with Cara when she says that the time for tokenism is over. So we definitely, each and every one of us needs to readdress the way we live every day of our lives while we continue to work and engage with governments to ensure stronger environmental policies and work and live with this awareness that we are everything that we are only because of nature. And we must respond to nature with a lot more compassion, empathy, and respect, more respect than ever before, because nothing that we are is possible without nature. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dia. Cara.
I guess I will end with 2 requests. One is that each one of us, each one of you rediscovers the magic of nature, rediscovers the magic of the earth. Living in cities, most of us don't spend enough time walking barefoot, digging our hands into the mud, listening to bird song. And I think as science shows time and again that these are essential to human health and well-being. And my second request is once you rediscover the magic of nature, to commit to engage with the very pressing issues that all of us are facing and that your children and grandchildren are going to have to deal with in the years to come. Thank you so much for having me on this panel. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Malu, over to you.
Yes, I think we can all leave with hope that youth like Cara will take the earth and treat it as an heirloom rather than a resource. We have Vandana, Dia, and Bittu showing us the way, and we all have a role to play, and we promise to do that. And Vandana, again, we are taking up the offer to collaborate and we'll reach out to you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Malu.
Thanks.
Hello.